is a special meeting of the Rhinetown Park Commission, also known as a community conversation. And if everybody and join us for the pledge. The flag is over there. You can't see it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll have an informal roll call.
With us today, I'm Gary Zuckerman. I'm the supervisor of the town of Rye and president of the commission. To my left is Benny Salamitro, Rye-Neck representative, Paul Rosenberg, the mayor of the village of Rye Brook, and I'm sorry, Emily Hurd. I keep thinking of her. Anyway, Emily Hurd, a city councilwoman from Rye, also a member of the commission.
Also with us, I'd like to
mention some of the other people who are responsible for maintaining the park. Oh, by the way, Mayor Cohn is not with us today. He's on family business in Italy. So, congratulations to him. And Russ Gold is also our new park director, is not with us. He left a statement you may wish to read. He was unable to attend also because of a prior family commitment. Our new director of grounds and maintenance, Vic Federico. Vic, where are you? There he is back there. We also have the general manager of the Barley Beach House, Amy Boughton, is in the back. And if any of you walk by the beach house, I don't know if they'll let you in, but it's under construction. It's getting close to being ready. It's a lot changed from last year, and we're hoping for a really successful restaurant. Mark, are you here? Mark Casada, our lifeguard captain? Okay. Our assistant captain, our lieutenant, Bob Smalt, who is in the process now of training or retraining our lifeguard staff for our open water safety. Jose Oliveras, where's Jose? Is our park attendant captain. This year we are not having cashiers and people called cashiers and people called attendants or traffic people. They're all park attendants because of our new parking situation and process, which Debbie will go over later. Mike Cancel, Mike, our new security captain. Sal Valiente, our head of maintenance. Sarah Suma, where are you, Sarah? Sarah, I don't even know. Sarah does so much for the town and the park, I can't even characterize all that she does. And of course, Debbie Reiser, our chief of staff and secretary. Did I leave out anybody?
Bill Lawyer.
Oh, yeah, he's on my where's Bill? Right. Thank you, Bill. Yes. Bill, you're on my list. I'm sorry. Our assistant park director and community relations specialist. The first item on the agenda is actually a resolution, since this is a formal meeting. We have flagpoles in the park, which you may have noticed, and if you look outside, you can see that they're all pretty well deteriorated. So this resolution is to sign a contract with Pallet Pro to paint and renovate those 4 flagpoles for a cost of under $4,100 for all of them. The proposal is attached. We are experienced with Pallet Pro. They are the low bidder. We solicited 3 bids, and they were the low bidder, and we're very happy that they were the low bidder because they've done work for the town. Have they done work for the commission before?
Yeah.
Yes.
They did all the lead paint remediation here last year.
Okay, and they've done a lot of work for the town of Rye as well. So we're really happy. They're really responding. In fact, they just finished the Continental Footbridge in Rye Neck, painting that. So anyway, may I have a motion and a second to approve that resolution?
Second?
Call the roll, Debbie, please.
Commissioner Hurd,
Yes.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Salanitro, President Zuckerman.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Next, I'd like to discuss our capital projects. And if you have questions after I'm done, we'll be happy to take them. Number one, everybody can see that the roof of the bathhouse is being replaced, totally replaced. We got a grant of $250,000 through the efforts of Steve Otis, our assemblyman, and I don't know if Steve's here. I didn't see him. He's usually here. And the actual price is a little over $500,000 because that is a historic roof and has to be replaced absolutely according to historic regulations. And our architect, Lisa Easton, helped design it, and she's supervising our construction. The contractor is L&M Roofing, which also did the roof over here several years ago on the tower building. Thanks, Bob. Testing. Hello. And they also did the emergency repairs on the plaster that was falling off the tower building. So they're a really responsible contractor. The seawall. People asked me about the seawall. There was an article in one of the local newspapers a few months ago. Bids have been received and are being evaluated. We are hoping to be able to get a recommendation for a contractor for the seawall at our May meeting, which is on May 21st. The final due diligence is being undertaken as we speak, and hopefully we will be able to have a responsible contractor do that work. The work cannot begin until September 1st. That's what the DEC permit states, and that's because we have something called nesting terns, which, Bill Lawyer, you are really familiar with the nesting terns.
Well, they have a season when they're hatching their eggs, and by the end of July or August, then they're all on their way.
Right, we are not allowed to be in construction from April 1st to September 1st. So hopefully, September 1st, we'll have shovels in the ground. The handicap accessible ramps. Final construction drawings are being prepared so we can get a really good estimate and go out to bid. We do not have a contract yet with the State Parks Department because we have to wait till we submit our seeker forms 2 and 3, which we will hopefully approve at our May meeting, and then get the contract, but we have permission to go ahead and do all the preparatory work before that. And once again, we're pretty sure that the DEC permit is, in fact, we know it because we got a letter from DEC. That work also has to be commenced after September 1st and before April 1st. So hopefully we'll be able to get into the ground and get the ramps done before the next season. We also, and I'm not supposed to talk about this, so I'm going to talk in the hypothetical. We have been notified that there is an excellent possibility that we are getting an invasive species grant for in the amount of $100,000. And Sarah, please do not write that. Because this is all only between us, because they said the governor wants to make the announcement of all the grants, and so we're not supposed to do that. I just noticed Steve Otis. Hi, Steve. We're just talking about the capital work and especially the roof, which you see ongoing. And thank you again for your efforts in securing that money. While I'm talking about capital, I'm going to shift slightly to repair. I've directed Russ and Vic to prepare a complete list of capital and repair needs for the park. The basis, I gave them, many of you, if you've seen the budget over the years, former Councilman Bob Nyers of the town of Rye and Tom Nardi of the town of Rye prepared an extensive list in 2011 of everything that the park needed and estimates. Some of that work obviously has been done or is in the process of being either applied for or completed. And we're going to update that list, and it is my intention with the commission to look at that complete list and to set our priorities going forward, and either to make a repair plan or to modify our capital budget to take into account everything so that we can get a 3 or 5 year plan going forward. It's when we were interviewing for the director and the maintenance job, I was adamant that this park be presented in the best possible light. You can walk around the park, there are cracks in walls, there are problems with, on the ground in terms of the asphalt, safety issues, the concrete sidewalks around the park. All of that needs to be taken into account. And as I say, Rome wasn't built in a day. We do have limited funds, but we need to set those priorities. We have been setting priorities, but we're going to make that a much more formal process so that everybody can see where we want to go. And the commission in the next couple of months will be faced with setting those priorities. I also want to mention the building behind us, the tower building. We've had these discussions in the past. There are some people who want to knock it down. There are some people who want to put money into preserving it. The problem is we don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with it. It is not handicap accessible. It needs all kinds of work. If you would go out and get an estimate of what, depending on what you want to use it for, probably you're talking in the $15 to $20 million range. And that's nothing that we, as a commission, or even the town of Rye or the city of Rye, I think are willing to undertake unless we have a really definite plan. So I believe the best solution is to set up a citizens group, including the Friends, one or two of the commissioners, our park staff, people who are interested in the park, Friends. We are attempting, or certain people are attempting to set up a conservancy to help raise private money. And I think that this is a community conversation meeting, and I think there's nothing that is in this park that is more relevant to a community conversation than to determine what we're going to do in the future with the tower building. So we're going to go forward with that process. We've talked, we had the capstone grant talking about visioning and things, and this is really part of that. This is visioning what this park is going to be. And, that's an important part. Let me just finish by saying that the next round of CFA consolidated funding applications are due at the end of July. We have grant writers, I would say re-preparing, because last round we got approval for the interior of the bathhouse to make it handicap accessible and enable us to move the permit office, the director's office into that building. We also, but because we only got $300,000 rather than the $500,000 that we requested. We prioritized, and the commission prioritized, doing the ramps first. And hopefully we'll have a very solid price on that and then be able to determine what we need to do to go forward to reapply or to reconfigure that application with the approval of the Parks Department to include the interior. Also, we did not get a grant to stabilize the exterior of the bathhouse. We are reapplying. We were told when we had a meeting with the State Parks Director in charge of this area that our application was excellent. However, there were only 2 preservation grants given, I believe, in all of Westchester, the state, I don't remember. One of them went to the horses at Playland. So I think that was unfortunate. I know people love the horses at Playland, but I think the exterior of the bathhouse for us is a more important issue. And we're reapplying, and hopefully we will get a grant for that. So that is my update on that. Commissioners, anybody want to weigh in on it? Anybody from the community? Yes, sir. Yes. Please introduce yourself.
Philip Horner from Rhinebeck. We've been coming to the beach in the park for over 40 years and love it. And one thing I pointed out to you in the past, and I didn't hear you mention, is the toilet area off of the beach. It is something that's really substandard and disgusting. What are your thoughts? I know it's part of this building here, but something could be done on the way of upgrade maintenance, short of redoing the whole building. Thank you.
Mr. Horner, our maintenance director is hearing you. Vic?
No, there's... Oh, not here.
Vic, I think you're aware of it. You don't have to say it. Vic is aware of it, and that will be part of our priorities list as we go through it. Because yes, we have the entire tower building, but we also have parts of the tower building, and one of the problems
with the background, one of the problems, obviously.
One of the problems, obviously, we have to look at the handicap accessibility issue of those bathrooms, and that will be part of our overall plan to, and this will be a published plan. There's not going to be any secrets, total transparency. Thank you, Mr. Horner. Anybody else wish to comment? I think we'll go on to something everybody is concerned about, and that is our season permit process and the parking system. And I'm going to turn that over to Debbie. We are well on our way to installing the new parking system. So Debbie, you want to bring us up to date?
Hi, everybody. I have my computer in my hand because I'm going to go back to the mission of the Parking Solutions Committee, which started its work not quite a year ago. And the mandate assigned to the Parking Solutions Committee was to work with the parking consultant to develop recommendations regarding how to, 1, maximize the designated parking areas and minimize parking on the grass, 2, increase safety and efficiency in traffic flow, and 3, employ technology to streamline operations. So what I'm about to explain to you is what we're now doing to implement the plans developed for those 3 areas. So one of the first things we did, and I'm not sure how, there we go, I got close enough. We took a really hard look at the space that we have. And what you are seeing is a rendering of the chart that we have created so that we can maximize the space that we have. And the idea is if we can put the cars in a smaller amount of space, there'll be fewer cars on the grass. So we have also created a new traffic flow so that cars will be able to enter both the right and the left entryway by the entry parking booth. And then they will be able to self-park and find their way. The path that goes into the back, that goes over the footbridge, is being changed. So now,
Excuse me,
yes?
I'm sorry, we can't see.
Oh, it's so rare that I actually can block something. How's that? I'll wander around a little bit. All right, so cars will enter in the entrance that they've been using, self-regulate around, and then they will be directed to what we call the gravel lot, which is lot B. And then if they can't find cars there, then they will be directed to the area between the pond and Forest Avenue. And there, we are going to be using markers in the grass so that cars understand where the rows are and can park efficiently, one right next to the other. By using this, we think that we're going to be able to make maximum use, and also it will be a much clearer traffic pattern. Our park rangers will be there to assist in cars moving safely around the parking lot. And when we have overflow times, our park attendants will be cross-trained to come in and to help direct traffic. So that's what we've done about maximizing the grass. We have also introduced technology. And on the table in the back is the letter that went out to all residents and all permit holders, which introduced a new electronic-based parking system. And that will consist of the removal of the gate and the cashiers at the parking booth. All permit holders, families, open water swimmers, they will all enter their license plates into our database, and we will have a license plate reader mounted on a golf cart that will, all right, thank you, and will patrol the cars. And that is how, that's how we will monitor and ensure that people have paid for their parking. So that's season permit holders. Daily parkers will be able to use their phones, and there's a phone app called Pay to Park, and there are special rates for residents and then normal rates for non-residents, for people who want to park on a daily basis. And that will be available for all day or also 4-hour time chunks. If you want to take advantage of the resident rates, you've got to set up an account. It costs you nothing, but it has to be done. Otherwise, we have no idea that you're a resident. But once you're a resident and you have registered your license plate number, then whether you're going to walk up to a parking station or whether you pull out your phone, you will get the special resident rates. We have the technology that's been set up to do that. I would also say that our portal is nearly ready. It will be launching this Wednesday. So at that point, you'll be able to log on and start this process. We have 3 parking stations going in, going back over here, and those will be at the circle here. That will be right over here in front of the water, or right next to the water fountain in front of the administration building, right there, and right next to the flagpole in front of the bathhouse. So whether you're coming in from the lawn area, or if you're coming in through the main areas, you will be able to safely leave the parking lot, so you're not standing around the parking lot figuring out how to use a parking station, into the park, and then enter your license plate number and how long you'd like to stay. Any questions?
So Deb, there's permit, daily resident, and daily
Please use the
non-resident.
microphone. Please.
Oh, sorry.
Doesn't matter which one.
So there's permit, daily resident, and daily non-resident? Did I understand that?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah.
I don't
Yes.
know about the car.
Oh, would you, here, I'll give,
This is yours.
I can, do you want to go up to the desk, Linda? Or I can enter the mark?
I don't understand this thing exactly because we just got it yesterday. But I don't always drive the same car. And if someone has a rental car, then they won't be registered.
That's correct.
So I don't think a person who has a pass, paid for a pass to come in or is able to get a pass needs to use a certain car. I think that's a little bit of a problem. And sometimes friends come and I use my pass and we're all in the same car. We pay for whoever needs to be paid or whatever. So I think that's, I think the car thing could be a problem.
Thank you. We are setting up the permit system so that you will be able to enter 2 license plate numbers. We did not take into account people who have rental cars and those other issues. I think we can deal with them as we go along, but we can't solve for all problems. But thank you.
That's all right.
For all problems, for all eventualities.
And someone
This-
is going to help us to work this new thing on the iPhone?
Yes, our cashiers, last year's cashiers, this year's park attendants will be our ambassadors. And they are going to be assigned to be available in the parking areas and to help people navigate this new system. There was a question.
Might as well go over here. Hi, Steve Vasco from Dearborn. First of all, thank you very much for addressing the parking issue. I would love to see no parking on the lawn, and I hope that is actually where we focus. I understand the revenue issue, so at least we're maybe headed in that direction. Yeah, I'm sure there's a few technology glitches, but it'll be good as long as we have ambassadors out there. One miss I kind of saw on the new rates here is that including parking in all of the permits. Previously, if you could get a family permit without parking included. There's a substantial number of people, of course, that live local. I live very close. I would never drive my car down here, but I think there's also people that are right on that cusp. And if you give them an incentive not to drive by giving them a small discount, they may not get in the car and bring their family down and use up a space that might be paid for by somebody out of town or generate actually more revenue than it would on the permit. So I'd suggest that maybe we put in another level that does not include parking so that people are encouraged not to drive to the park, but still use the park as much as possible.
May I borrow the letter that you have in your hand, please?
Sure. I also found some of the other things on there a little bit confusing as far as what the levels and rates, like open swim wasn't clearly described. Maybe a little bit more description about what is included or not included, what it means. Is that swimming outside the hours when there's lifeguard there? Is that my assumption? I don't really know what it means, so maybe we could get better explanations about what's on the rate chart there.
So in the second paragraph of the letter,
Yeah.
there's a line that reads, beach-only permits are only available, parking not included, in person. So what that means is, if you go into the permit office, everybody will be able to get a beach-only permit.
Okay, why wouldn't we put that on the front chart where you have the breakdown of every permit that's available? And yeah, how much is it?
It's $50 off whatever rate you're at,
Okay.
except for resident singles.
All right, it just seems like we should
Resident seniors,
we should
pardon me.
encourage people to use that because we want less cars in general to take up spaces.
Thank you.
Sure, and just one other thing about the parking. There's obviously several times a year when we are at over capacity. 4th of July is one. I think we really should consider having holiday rates, particularly for out-of-town people, that are substantially higher. to charge the same, $30 that you would for another day doesn't make a lot of sense. It could be something as high as $50 or $60 because the parking is at a premium. There's no reason not to profit from it, and we're turning people away left and right and causing traffic problems in the area. So as long as people knew in advance how much it would cost, I think it's perfectly reasonable to charge a lot more money for those days when we're going to be over capacity. I mean, some are just great weather and you can't necessarily predict that, but we certainly know the key holidays are going to do that, and we could generate some revenue that way.
Those are all really good questions. Let me address the letter. I mean, that went through like 3 or 4 drafts. We tried to get it all right. Obviously, we missed some things. And that'll be rectified in next year's letter. You raise a really good point in terms of holiday rates. That's something we could consider, and in fact, it's probably not too late to change it if the commission decides to change it. But we made a lot of rate changes this year, fee changes, and change is difficult for anybody when they're used to a certain way of doing it. So we wanted to really keep a lot of it at a minimum if we could. Obviously, we can't, and that's an issue that warrants addressing. So we will consider that. Thank you. Anybody else? Mrs. Horner. So Mrs. Lefkowitz.
Linda Lefkowitz, Oakwood Avenue Ride. I'll get back to my usual issue at this park, if that has to do with the handicap. And I know we're finally getting somewhere, so I feel good about the letters I've written and the help I've given. I don't know why the town of Rye Board wants to know my handicap tag. I don't understand that. The handicap tag belongs to me. It doesn't belong to my car. It doesn't belong to my husband. So wherever I go, I can use that handicap tag. It has nothing to do with the park. I don't see why they want to know it or have it. I don't think it's any of their business to have it in their system. So maybe people don't realize how the handicap works. But when I go to Florida, I can use the handicap tag. I can use it on any car I'm driving. Or if I'm a passenger in the car, I can use it.
I understand. I believe that was put in there. You can give your handicap tag, correct? If you wanted to lend your handicap tag to that gentleman over
I
there.
don't think so. I don't think I'm supposed to lend it to him.
No, you're not. But people can take their handicap tag and give it to somebody else, and if that person's license plate is registered, then when they come to the park, they can use the handicap space. But if your handicap tag is linked to your car, then they wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, it does make some sense to try to avoid people who are breaking laws or taking.
And that's the only purpose. I mean,
advantage,
it's not looking to follow you. It's to make sure that all the rules are respected. That's all.
Well, I don't see where the rules are respected if a friend wants to come to the beach with me, for instance, or a family. And we all come together, and I'm in the car, and I have a handicap.
So you can come to the park, of course.
So I can come to the park. But I might not be in their car if they have a more comfortable car for someone that's handicapped, can't get in and out easily. So I don't see what it has to do with having it to my car. And the other thing is, who's monitoring all this stuff? Because, Amazon's watching everybody. I don't feel like being watched.
Debbie, basically we're collecting license plate numbers. I wasn't aware of that thing.
Mrs. Lefkowitz, we're only putting license plate numbers into our database. We're not collecting handicap tag numbers at all. I'm not sure.
It's asking for it. It's asking for the handicap tag number issued by date. So I don't understand.
Okay. I'll look into it and get an explanation for you.
Because it doesn't have to do with my dog.
Well,
Good morning. Megan Corbett, Forest Avenue. All the improvements over all the many years I've lived here have just made the park better and better, and I thank you for that. My question is there a limit to the number of cars that can park on the grass in those very high occupancy times? Are we going to put a number on that? Because I base all of those cars.
Yeah, the parking for the entire property is delineated. The area on the grass is also delineated, will be better delineated than prior years with ropes. The parking attendants are going to be trained, better trained to consolidate those spaces so they're not cars aren't haphazardly parked. So we're trying to, part of the parking study that we just completed, outside of doing this improvement with the app, is also to consolidate the number of cars and how the cars are parking on the grass. So we're looking to not go beyond what was originally contemplated and possibly reduce where we can.
What would be that number?
We don't have, it's not by number, there's a rough, it depends on how people park. As you know, we all know that it's very difficult to put a parking space on grass. So there's some techniques that we're looking to utilize, maybe painting or some other way of identifying the actual space. What we're trying to do is reduce the space width so that we can get more cars in a smaller area rather than fewer cars in a larger area. So we don't have a number because we don't have parking spaces identified yet.
Understood. Also, we know that the weight of cars driving on the grass and tree roots and all of that is not helpful for those.
Totally understood, and that's where we have new employees who are well-versed in understanding how to make a balance between what we're using it for and then the actual lawn itself.
So that number will be, or range of cars will be released. That number will be released at some point.
We're going to keep track of what the number of vehicles on the maximum, on the worst case day, if you will. We're going to keep track of that, so we'll know how many vehicles are actually being parked on there on the lawn.
No, I understand you can't answer every permutation.
We haven't had a lot of data in the past, and I think part of the goal of rolling this new parking plan out is to collect that data. And so at the end of this season, the goal is to keep people off of the hill, right? So the grass, that map is great, except for those two blue spots that look like the pond, but the pond is actually in that white circle that you can see the sort of, as you know. So the goal will be to keep the parking in the spots below the hill. On the high traffic days, we're gonna have to see. The flow should be much better with the lack of a gate stop and two entrance lanes. So I think this year we've made a ton of modifications, and I think we're hesitant to put any numbers around anything because we're really not sure what they are. But this year we'll have a lot of data to look at, and I don't think that we've disbanded the Parking Solutions Committee, so in the fall we'll reevaluate.
Okay, thank you.
I have two questions. On the issue of parking on the hill, there are a half a dozen Sundays and probably the 4th of July and Labor Day where this place totally fills up. I don't think you should eliminate over 100 spaces on those days because the neighbors don't like to look at it, and and at your March meeting, which I was at, I think 3 or 4 of the commissioners spoke up and said, no, we're not limiting. That is like a fence or a deadline. We would use what I call the side of the hill on heavy days. There was one other suggestion I made a few times over the years. Turning people away is pretty nasty, and in fact, they had to call the police a few times to straighten out Dearborn Avenue. I suggested you not book weddings and big parties on Sunday afternoons. That wasn't acted upon, but I throw that out again, because what you see is you come to the gate, there's 20 parking spaces, they say you can't come in. I said, why not there? And they say, it's reserved for the wedding. You're not in the wedding business, you're in the beach business. And you give people permits for the beach. So you shouldn't crowd them out for another reason. Please be sensitive to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? Julian Ratchford from Oakwood Avenue. I just want to further on something the first gentleman got up and spoke. And I think some of you know this is something I've brought up a couple of times in meetings in the past. With people who aren't parking at the beach, obviously parking is such a contentious issue. Everyone tries to look for ways to minimize it. Trying to find a way that we have a reasonable priced access for people who are walking or riding bicycles to the beach should be encouraged. It's probably the best activity you can do getting down to the beach. You know, I wasn't quite clear, Debbie, what the price was for somebody who was just walking to the beach.
$50 less.
Less than
For the
what?
permit. Whatever rate, whatever level, if you had a family rate.
$175 a year.
Thank you.
For family and 2 children.
So 175, is it?
Usually 150, so I think it's fine.
I think the family rate this year is $225, is that right? So a family rate, if you don't drive to the park, is $175 a year?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be on here because we want to try and encourage people to walk and ride their bikes to the beach. I mean, it's part of getting out and being recreational. I think it's will encourage people to do that and will give people another option to park.
I forgot my second question, which you don't take 1 second. I understand everybody's got to get a picture on their permit. And I was unclear whether you're going to have a camera here or you have to bring something with you. How's that going to work?
Sarah, do you want to, shall I?
Hello, everyone. So if you are submitting a permit through the mail or online, you will either upload a photo of yourself and your family, or you will submit photos through the mail. If you plan to come to the permit office and get a permit, there will be a camera set up to take a photo of you, and it will link to the same way we've always done it, it'll link to your permit. But you can also bring in a photo if you'd like, and we'll have a scanner here in the office that can scan your photos. It wasn't listed on the letter. We will have the camera. Yes.
Sarah, is that for seniors? Yeah.
Yeah, for seniors as well. And then every person in your family pass also has to submit a photo. The new software that we're using, we're not bringing over any of the old information, so everybody has to resubmit.
You can't use a high school graduation picture.
You can use a driver's license, but mine was taken a long time ago. My hair was actually dark.
Mine was too.
You had a question here? I thought I had, I'm sorry.
Good morning, I'm Carrie Hollander, one of the senior lifeguards here. A common issue that comes up during the summer is when we have two parties, one or two parties, but especially two parties going on at the same time. It's kind of like dueling parties. The sound is quite high, and it actually poses a danger. And the danger is for those individuals sitting on the beach just beyond here, they can't hear announcements that are being made. If there's an emergency where we have to evacuate the water, people can't hear that. Is there something that we can do to balance the rental and they want to enjoy themselves with limiting the noise? Is that a possibility?
We will look into it.
Thank you.
I just want to ask a question about the event pricing? Is that changing at all?
Pavilion rentals?
Yeah.
We introduced a non-resident rental rate this year. That's higher, but the resident rate didn't change.
And what is that?
$450 on weekdays and $550 on weekends and holidays. And weekends includes a Friday.
And what, just because another person brought it up, what is the conditions of park? Do they get any parking with that? Just because it would seem like if they're reserving parking, that would be an issue.
They do not get parking as a matter of course. What people who rent the pavilions or the north gate to the North Grill area do not get parking out of hand. There is a special rate for renters for parking, but they still have to pay. And we don't reserve spots.
Okay, just a couple other questions. So if people are turned away, are they directed to go like to Playland and then the North Gate, or is that just like tough shit? Sorry.
On really heavy days, we do communicate with Playland, and I know that is Mike Kinsell still here? I think Mike would be better qualified to answer that question. He's where the rubber hits the road.
All right, I was just curious. And the other thing is, I know that people live in this area. I know parking to them is a bad sight for them, but there's been parking there for 60 years, and I know you didn't buy it unless you bought the house before. At least 60 years, as long as I've been coming here, people's cars have been there. And so for 10 months out of the year, you get this, absolutely perfection. And then 2 months out of the year, other people want to come, and I know that's offensive to you, that people want to share your beauty. But I'm sorry, that's the nature of this park. That's the problem with this park. That's the problem with the park when you bought that house. And I don't think it's fair to kind of come in and say, oh, we live here now, we don't want anyone else to come. And that's essentially what you're saying when you're saying we don't want cars, we don't want parking on the grass. There have been cars there as long as I've been alive, 60 years plus. So I don't think that's fair, and I think that people see it as offensive, where I see it as, oh my God, how nice that we have this. There's people coming from our area and enjoying. I mean, I have friends I only see in the summer here, and to me, it's a gem. And to say, let's limit how many people can come, let's limit how many people can come, because we don't like the way cars look. I find it, I'm almost in tears at how offensive that is to people enjoying this park.
I just think part of I know it's a contentious topic, and I know everybody wants to enjoy the park, and I think that's our goal as the commission. I think some of the concerns are more with the parking on the grass sort of takes away from the park.
For what? For 20?
Well, because there's cars there. And
60 days out of 360?
I'm just sharing a perspective with you.
I'm sharing my perspective.
Yeah, that's okay.
Everyone has shared. They don't like to see cars. Sorry.
May I say something?
The grass has been parked on for 60 years plus. But for 60 years plus.
So I think it's not just the people who live there. I think it's for the safety of our children when they play in the park, because if cars park 4 months out of the year, they can't play in the park because it's not safe. It's just also the park should be for us to enjoy.
Park that there's no grass on. There's no cars.
Yeah, well, but I really think it's just.
We're going to we'll address the board.
Safety is something totally different, but half the park is cars and the other half is not cars.
Oh, but then
I would not encourage my children to play where there's cars. I mean, that's common sense.
Let me say something about that. We always try to strike a balance. Different people have different interests. The interests of the Park Commission, which is the body that sets the policy, is to have a beautiful, successful park that everybody can enjoy. We try to balance the needs of the park goers, whether they come from the Bronx or Rybrook or Portchester or the city of Rye. The needs with the people who live right around the park and can enjoy this park all year long. It's a balance. One of the major concerns with the parking on the grass is the destruction of the grass and the environmental problems that it causes when you have automobiles on grass, not only trampling it, but possibly leaking fluids on it, etc. So that's not a good thing. I don't know that I've ever heard what you have mentioned in terms of we don't want the cars because we don't like to see cars. I don't recall hearing that. I do recall hearing people say we don't want cars on the grass because it endangers the park and the park atmosphere. Hopefully, we will have fewer cars on the grass this year because of the parking solution that we're attempting to effectuate in terms of where the cars are going. I think we've increased the number of spaces by this reconfiguration by about 30. Is that the correct number?
Roughly.
About 30 spaces. So hopefully that will take some of the burden off. But, you know, it's all a balancing situation. Different people have different interests. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. This gentleman's statement, Julian, we really need to encourage people to walk and people to cycle to the park. It's a great exercise, and I think that we have an environmental thrust in that direction. At some point, when we address the needs of the parking lot, I would like the commission to consider putting electric charging stations at the parking lot so that it shows the environmental concerns that we have. That's obviously a commission decision, to think about going forward. But we are environmentally concerned, and we want as few cars as possible to come to the beach. But we want the beach to be successful. We do need the revenue. That's how the park operates. There is, a lot of people feel, and I happen to be one of them, that the park should be free for residents. I'd like to see that happen at some point. And there are possible solutions to go forward, but that obviously would mean the use of additional tax dollars rather than the use of fees. But, those are things to be thinking about in the future. The park it's an ongoing, changing environment for everybody. And it's something, one thing I can say, I think we all love the park. There's nobody sitting here today that doesn't love this park and doesn't want to see this park succeed and doesn't want this park to be as beautiful as possible. And I can say that without reservation. How we get there in each individual circumstance is something that we discuss, and that's why we have these conversations. That's why we want to hear from all the residents and non-residents so that the commission can make the proper decision for the benefit of the park.
Do you want Mike to address how overflow is handled?
Sure, and then we have a question back here and a question up here. Mike?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Basically, with the new parking system, the flow will be a lot easier. There will be no backflow in the circle. I think at times some people anticipated getting a backflow on busy days like Saturday and Sunday. We won't have that no more, being that there won't be no one at that parking booth. Cars will come in on they would drive in and they would park as they will freely within the park. The grass area will not be open till the park is at full capacity. The grass area will never be, we will not put no cars till that lot is full. And there will be speed bumps within the parking area to slow up the cars also, being that there's children in the park. So we will have a safe manner at the park. If anyone has any problems with parking issues, I'll be here. You can find me. I'm throughout the park. If anything, I'll be at the Assistant Director's office, and you can see me there, and we can determine what the problem is and try to make it better.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
One of the things I think just also to expand upon that is how we manage those empty parking spaces that might be peppered throughout the parking lot. So we realize that people are coming and going, they're not necessarily staying a whole day. So our parking attendants are going to also be identifying open spaces so that we can get the flow of traffic to move better as well. Overall, I think that we're expecting a very positive experience with this new parking structure.
This gentleman here had a question, and then the lady in the beautiful orange jacket, and Jacob.
Good morning, Larry Dorman, Water's Edge. On the issue of park aesthetics, has the commission considered passing and enforcing a pooper scooper law, like many other villages and towns have, which this park really needs?
I believe that the city of Rye has such a law, and it's enforced by the Rye City Police Department. Emily, am I correct with that?
I believe so, although I'll have to look into that.
All right.
Well, we do have a sign as you enter that talks about dogs running loose between 9 and 12 and the requirement of a permit, but we don't have any sign.
Well, we could put up a sign to that effect about people having to pick up after their dogs.
Because it's really becoming a problem, more of a problem than dogs running loose, I would say, as far as health hazards and other hazards. And I think if the rangers would enforce it from time to time, if they see it, of course, then the word will get out that it's not acceptable.
Well, let me talk about enforcement for a minute. The commission is enforcing the new parking regulations and things to do with cars. It is my understanding that dogs off leash that have to get a permit from the city of Rye, the dog law is enforced by the city of Rye. We could look into having our park rangers enforce that as well, but I think that Emily and Josh can talk to the police commissioner and discuss that. And we will work with them. Let me just touch on one thing, since you raised enforcement with dogs. We have enforcement with cars. Those who do not pay properly for their parking will be subject to a ticket, and the ticket will be returnable in Rye Town Court, and the fine will be $50 for the first until the return date, and then it will, I believe, double after that. So if people, would come to the park thinking that they could not pay and that they wouldn't be caught, we're going to have license plate readers, as Debbie indicated, on golf carts, reading the license plates, and that's for both, it doesn't matter with permit holders, obviously, but daily parkers, it will be enforceable in the Rye Town Court. So, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. This young lady.
I'm Tracy Starr, I'm Chair of the Conservation Commission Advisory Council for the City of Rye, and I also walk my dog every single day in the park. It's a beautiful place, and I'm grateful that I can do that every day. But I'm also curious to know if you could share with us how you are treating the lawns presently, and if you're going to be doing anything different in the future. There's been some promotion about making the park greener, but I'm just concerned on how that's going to happen, and if you're looking at things in an environmental way.
Well, I can assure you that whatever is done will be in an environmental way, and we welcome your input. I think the person that is going to be in charge of, initially, of looking at that will be Vic, who's in charge of our Vic, who's in charge of our grounds maintenance and plant maintenance, and has considerable experience in that regard. And I think you can feel free to discuss with him how you view it and how the Conservation Commission views it, because once again, we want the park to be successful, and part of that success is having beautiful grass and healthy, beautiful trees.
Thank you. Yes, it would just be beneficial to do it in a healthy, organic way, because many people use this, families, picnic in the park, and so we would like to do it as in a healthy way as possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jamie?
Hi, Jamie Jensen, Forest Avenue. Thank you. I've been going to commission meetings since I moved to town, and I'm, yes, one of those people that lives right near the park, and so feels very strongly about keeping it a park and not a parking lot. So it is really quite refreshing that all of you are sitting up here and really have embraced this problem and are looking at it and trying to find a way to balance. I really want to encourage people to buy permits. From my perspective, the goal of buying a permit is saying basically when it gets to be an overflow, you can begin to look at your policymakers and say, don't you think we should give priority to permit holders? So when there's a day in which they got to close, you want those permit holders to be allowed in for the overflow. But those are the days where I actually feel quite comfortable looking at all of you and saying, you know what, you can turn away a tourist. We do it all over the state, in every state park. If it's too busy and it's just a day tripper from somewhere 30 miles from here, it's okay. They should, I don't know what to tell you, but permit holders, if you buy a permit, that's a great reason to make the case for some balance. But otherwise, I think we really should limit as much as possible on the green, and I want people to buy permits. We need to own this park, and we need to take care of it. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just one quick question on the note, Ted Stein, Right Beach Avenue. On the note of encouraging people to buy permits, which is a great idea, it sounds like the communications concerning the discounts for a no parking permit have not been clear, and there might be some other issues like explaining what the open water swim category requirements are. Perhaps another letter clarifying those things would encourage people to do what you want them to do.
Thank you. I can clarify open water swim. Open water swim is a program that operates Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights. It is, the fee was $50, and people who would like to participate in open water swim, we have organized groups. Several, for example, triathlon clubs use it. It's a great training tool to prepare for triathlons, the swim portion, especially our own Westchester triathlon, which is held at the end of September. And most of the groups would, welcome you or anybody else who cared to join in that. It's from 6 o'clock, we have lifeguards on duty. The groups come out with usually their own people on paddle boards for safety reasons, and it's guided. And there are several different routes that are set up. One of which, if you're really experienced, goes out past the point and all the way down, about to that red buoy down there, and back again, and others just stay within the, beginners stay within the first buoy line and learn to swim in the open water. It's basically wetsuits, because the water can be quite cold, especially up through August or so. It's a program we started last year. And while I'm at it, let me just mention a couple of other programs that we started last year and will continue. We have a kayak program for people to rent kayaks. When does that start, Debbie?
I would say within the next week or so. The trailer is arriving on Monday.
Okay, so we have a kayak program for people to rent kayaks and go out. We're talking with, we're setting up potentially some events in the water. we're hopefully setting up, and I think this will come before the commission at the May meeting, something what we call a splash and dash for kids to go into the water, have maybe a 100-meter, 200-meter swim competition, then they run out of the water, and we set up a run course of maybe, a quarter of a mile or so, different age groups, and hopefully benefit charity. I think Soul Riders may be involved. I'm not quite. I don't remember. The other program that is going to come before the commission, the Metropolitan Swimming, which is part of USA Swimming, is proposing to set up their regional championships here at the beach, and that will include a 5,000 meter, a 3,000 meter, and a 1,500 meter course. It's going to be open for competitive swimmers and also master swimmers, which means older people, and that's really exciting. And if it works out well, they'll pitch it to put the USA Championships here someday. We don't know if that's going to happen, but that's another program in the offing. We're also talking with people at the Special Olympics to see if we can have events here for people who are less able, that they can enjoy the water and the beach. So we're moving forward on a lot of programmatic fronts as well. Yes, ma'am.
Timing and all. Hi, Emily. Lori Fontanis. I am Vice Chair of the Conservation Commission Advisory Council. We're working with Tracy and a lot of great people of the Sustainability Committee. Thank you so much for talking about the environment. I wanted to just chime in a little bit more with what you were saying. So the park is not just lawn, and it's not just trees, but it's animals, it's wildlife, it is people too, and it's wetlands. And so we've already realized with the work we're doing in the Planning Commission, when restoring this wall here, that you have an endangered bird right on the property. I didn't know that before. It's really interesting. A lot of people have seen fox at night. There's all kinds of stuff. So when we're thinking of it, it's a whole ecosystem, and anything we can do to help you guys. I know you're talking about some like Phragmites control issues. All of that goes into the water. All that affects the wetlands, and we'd be thrilled to help in any way in terms of advice or input. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and your help would be very much appreciated. Is there anybody else? Emily just reminded me about Barley. Is Amy still here? Amy, come on, give us an update. Tell us what we're going to expect and when.
Hello. Piggybacking on the sustainability thing, we are totally doing the whole paper straws this season. No straws unless they're requested, and if they are requested, we have all paper straws in the house. Great. Our opening day will be a week from tomorrow, Mother's Day. We're going to open for brunch, and then we're going to close the consecutive Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for 2 weeks. So we're going to have a Sunday schedule, then Thursday through Sunday for 2 weeks leading up to Thursday, May 22nd. From that point forward, we'll be open lunch and dinner every day. Pretty excited. They're putting the final coat of the polyurethane on the bar right now, so that'll be done by Monday. We completely knocked down the bar in the room where it was previously and built a new one in the center of the main dining room, so all the bar seats have front view. That side room is now additional seating. Private parties could be held in there, small baby showers, things like that. In the winter months, because we plan to be so much more than seasonal now, part of the renovation was installing heat in the building, redoing all of the front windows and doors and whatnot to control any sort of draft issues. All the flooring was redone, and we're super excited to be here kind of long term now.
Thank you. Great. And we wish you much success. We know that when you're successful, we're successful. We want you to draw a lot of people to pay those parking and beach fees.
We intend to.
Yes. I have a question about parking. Last year Last year, you didn't seem to want to take reservations. So if people come here, pay to park, go over there and then find out they can't get a seat, I don't think that's really right. So I would like to know why you're not, or this year, will you take reservations? Because
Last year, we were open for 73 days. It was an intense challenge opening in the time of season when we did, and we were just getting through it to close the doors and renovate. We couldn't wait to get to this point. We are accepting reservations. I have a ton of reservations already in the book. Typically, I would say for larger parties, for groups of 6 or 8 or more, and if and when a lot of things challenge us on that level, because if we took a ton of reservations and it happens to be an inclement weather day, I'm only limited to the inside seating. So I can only take reservations up until the amount of seating we have for inside, because worst case scenario, that outside wouldn't be available. But we're definitely happy to take reservations. Mother's Day is completely booking out soon. We have over 200 covers already, and it's kind of going to be a case-by-case scenario. There are days where we would have large parties and reservations and groups already booked that might limit the number of reservations we can take, but we'd be happy to take reservations.
so for people that have to drive here, and it's 2 people or 4 people, they have to come all the way here, get in the parking lot, do whatever, and then come over there and find out we can't get a reservation. So
Not at all. We'd be happy to have a seat for them at the bar and a cocktail and an appetizer while they're waiting for their table to be ready.
Hi. My major interest here is the beach and what goes on in the summertime. Are you continuing to handle the snack bar down below? And is the one in the north, I'm unclear of that, is that permanently closed now, or is that going to be used?
No, there definitely are plans in the works for that to be opening as well. I'm not sure on the time frame for that. Right now, the focus is obviously the restaurant and the concession area downstairs as well. The time frame for the concession area would be Memorial Day to Labor Day. So we have our staff in there within 2 weeks to start training and preparing everything for the downstairs as well once the restaurant is open.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Please, I just wanted to point out that we have magnets with the 2019 summer events on them at the back table. Grab one. You don't want to miss the magic show or the sand sculpture festival. Many other exciting events thanks to Bill Lawyer. We're really looking forward to a great summer. So take your magnet on your way out.
And also, there's a handout on the My Pay to Park mobile payment for those who would like to sign up for it. I have signed up for it. I will have a permit, as the other commissioners will. And
Well done, Jeff.
thank you, everybody.
Take a motion to
to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.